On the air, episode 160.
Mighty this week. Let's give it up for the on-air band, please. Wow. Did I tell you that we're the #1 television variety television program in San Diego? No?
That's exciting. Hey.
Did I also tell you that we're the only variety program in San Diego?
That too.
I get to see a. Remember when I was doing, KOSI I was doing Kogo in the morning.
Yeah.
Which is just down the street from KOSI.
Yeah.
So I would do my and I'd run over to you.
Yeah.
And do my Kogo hits.
And then 2020 happened.
And I've been in the studio at KOSI twice since 2020. I'm getting a tour today from Scott Heath, the president, general.
It's all new, right?
The whole thing.
It's a brand new.
I need to go get a tour too.
Yeah, I'm going to go check that out today.
And then in March, it'll be the home of KUSI and Fox 5.
Where you can see us, so you can see us now. If you're watching us on KUSI, you can also see us on Fox 5 and vice versa.
Yeah.
So there you go. So shall we start the show?
Let's do it.
What's happening? Anything?
You know what? We got a great lineup of guests.
Can I say this? We are having a CAF themed, Challenge Athletes Foundation themed show today because I got a call by one of our guests, who's a friend of mine, who has an incredible story. And he's going to tell you that story today. But we just happened to cross each other. I thought to myself, you know what? We got to get you in San Diego. And we can't do enough of these shows to raise money for Challenge Athletes
I
Foundation.
agree.
So
His story is incredible.
And I believe that's the second guest. But let's bring out the very first guest.
Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, the co-founder of the Challenge Athletes Foundation, give it up for Mr. Bob Babbitt.
Are you talking about my pants?
Your pajamas.
Everybody's
Nice pajamas.
talking about my tight pants.
Yeah. I got my tight pants on.
I got my tight. That's Mary's music, by the way.
That is. Jazz hands.
I bought new joggers, and they're the most comfortable thing, and I've slept in them for 3 days in a row. It's not casual Friday or Saturday. I slept in my car Thursday.
Are they Viore? What's this? I
don't know. They're called Made in a Hurry. I don't know. How many times are we on a 15 here?
Oh, no,
11.
We're approaching 15.
Babbitt, it's so great to see you. Bob and I have known each other for 30 years.
Easily.
Easily. I was 3 people ago, and you were 4 heads of hair ago.
I had the fro.
You had the beard, yeah.
You had a beard too.
Oh. Yeah.
But I say this all the time. Every time you hear, you're a saint. You are a saint right here in San Diego for all that you do across the nation and the world. I mean, you do so much great work.
What's interesting about Bob Babbitt is he's a very successful, having exits in businessman. And typically, when you see someone who has that level of success, okay, there's always a philanthropic sort of feel. But I can tell you, since I've been in business, then I was in media, you never were in any of it for the money. And I use you as an example all the time. The Competitor magazine, the Muddy Buddy, all the things you're involved with races, you never did it for dough. And I remember that we're both coming up in the world, figuring out how are we gonna make payroll, in 2 different organizations. Yeah. I did it for the money the entire time.
When we started Competitor magazine, we were underneath 10,000 pounds of bike racks in 200 square feet in a guy's garage, paying $200 a month. Wow. And we had no idea. Our first, some friends gave us $17,000 to start Competitor magazine, and our first print bill was $20.
Yeah.
So we were in a hole right from the beginning.
But the interesting part, what I'm getting to here is it is nascent to you to be passionate and follow that passion, and then success has followed. And typically, I would have been scared to do it that way, and you weren't even thinking in those terms.
No, well, we had nothing. When you have nothing, you're not really very scared. But when we started Competitor and then Muddy Buddy, it was because that was our passion. We loved covering running, triathlon, cycling, and mountain biking. More importantly, the stories of the athletes, and that led me to be honest.
Did Ironman come before Competitor or Competitor?
Yes.
So
Ironman led to Competitor.
So the Ironman triathlon in Kona, Hawaii, is a 2.4 mile swim followed by a 112 mile bike ride followed by a marathon.
Yeah.
You know what I call that?
Crazy.
The month of February.
2 months, yeah.
When I was 21.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. This is in one day.
Yeah, well,
this is sub 8 hours for some people.
And back then, we're talking, I went over in 1980. We had no clue what we were getting into.
You had a Huffy with a bell?
Yeah.
I had a bike from a police auction. It cost $75, and the whole back end had been charred in a fire.
Oh my
and I put panniers, sleeping bag, and tent on the bike because I thought you swam 2.4, rode 56, camped out, and rode back the next day. Had no idea you did the whole silly thing in one day. It was a little bit of a surprise.
So is that how you got passionate about?
Totally, because I didn't think I could finish this thing, and here I am with, wearing tennis shoes. My crew gave me a Big Mac fries and a Coke at mile 25 on a bike ride, root beer snow cone, full
Your beard was hitting your knees as you were riding your beach cruiser with the basket on the front.
The unknown. Had no idea what I was doing, but when here I am coming down into Kapilani Park, running down Diamond Head, thinking there's going to be all these people, there's going to be cheerleaders, there's going to be bands. I'm finishing this great journey. And I come into the park, and there's like a light bulb up here.
No way.
And there's a chalk line, and I hear this guy in the darkness. He's like, "Hey, you? Yeah. You in the race? Yeah. You're done." That was it. There was nobody else there. I was the only one in the park.
You're an Ironman?
No.
Bob Babbitt, you're an Ironman?
No.
Come on.
But when I left that, I knew that I could accomplish anything. It changed me.
But it also
as a PE teacher at the time.
But you got passionate about the endurance fitness, which made you create Competitor magazine.
Exactly. Led to becoming an editor for Running and Triathlon News. I came back from doing that race, and it was a magazine called Running News, and I convinced the guy the sport of triathlon, based on 100 of us who had just done this Ironman thing, is going to be huge. Changed the name to Running and Triathlon News. I became the editor for LA and drive up every weekend, and eventually it led to Competitor magazine.
And then that happened right there, CAF?
CAF happened.
I think that's a great point, because that's why it happened.
It happened.
By the way, how many Ironmans have there been now so far?
Ironman, 45, something like that. Yeah, we just actually I take a 47 because I did our anniversary from 1980 is 45 years.
You make a great point, because none of this would have happened if you weren't involved in those type of sports, right? Because that's
right.
about Jim McLaren, right?
Well, but even before that, with Competitor, when there was a wheelchair athlete named Jim Knob who recently passed, and Jimmy. I was doing a piece on him, because just the stories. Guy was an Olympic trials pole vaulter, got hit by a car on his motorcycle, very similar to McLaren. And then he was the one, when I was doing an article on him, I'm at his house, and I see a nickel on the floor. He's a wheelchair-bound guy, and I'm thinking, oh my God, the guy can't pick up the nickel off the floor. And I go down to pick up the nickel, and it's glued to the floor, and Knob's drinking a beer, looking at me like, Babbitt, lesson number one, don't ever underestimate anybody. And that became sort of the mantra, that he could accomplish anything he wanted, and he was the one who led to everything that followed.
And then from there...
Jim McLaren, yeah.
Jim McLaren was an endurance athlete.
Well, Jim was a football player. He was 300-pound offensive lineman at Yale. And then,
so naturally he likes long distance stuff.
Not at all.
The last guy in the world that should be doing this.
Exactly. So he was on his motorcycle going to acting classes in New York City, got hit by a New York City bus. Thrown 90
He was able-bodied.
Able-bodied. Got hit by a bus, thrown 90 feet in the air, lived, ended up losing his left leg, and came back from that with a prosthetic to run a 3:16 marathon.
Wow.
And then go 10:42 at the Ironman World Championship, where I met him because I had Competitor magazine. And then Jimmy was the Babe Ruth of amputee athletes, traveling the world. Everybody knew who he was, sponsored by Budweiser. 8 years later, he's racing in Orange County. He's on his bike, a van goes through a closed intersection, propels him headfirst into a pole. He becomes a quadriplegic. He's already an amputee.
Able-bodied, loses a leg, racing on a prosthetic which doesn't look like today's prosthetic. It was basically a
Captain Hook.
Captain Hook.
Yeah.
And now he gets hit again?
He gets hit again.
And now he's paralyzed.
Now he's paralyzed. And from Jim Knob, what I had learned is what's the worst part of his life at that point. And Jimmy had told me, hey, I was 30 years old, here come mom and dad back in my life. No sense of self or independence. And that led, when Jim McLaren was paralyzed, hey, let's get together, Jeffrey Esikow, Rick Kozlowski, and myself, and do an event at La Jolla Cove and raise $25,000 and get Jimmy a van with hand controls.
So he
give
can be
him
independent.
That was it. We raised 49. We think our job's done. 3 amputee women come up to us that day who had put a relay team together for Jimmy and said, hey, great what you did for Jimmy, but did you know when you get injured, your health insurance covers a walking around leg or an everyday wheelchair. Nothing to do with sport is covered by insurance because they consider it a quote unquote luxury item.
Will that ever change?
You know,
I think it's changing it.
It's
I think
changing a
you're
little
changing
bit.
it a little
There's
bit,
like
right?
17 states now have passed legislation where kids, where in the past, they would tell a parent with a child who needed a prosthetic leg, you should wait till he's 14 years old when he stops growing. Well, then for the first 14 years of life,
Not doing anything.
last kid picked. Right. So they, in 17 states now, it's required that you buy sports prosthetics for kids.
Oh, wow.
You know, if you think, yeah.
There you go.
Well, and that led into creating grants for
Challenge
folks with challenges in terms of how many different sports now?
Well, so now we've raised $180 million. It's been 32 years. We've sent out over
$180 million bucks.
yeah. So we've sent out over 48,000 grants to challenge athletes in all 50 states.
How do you raise 180 million? Like, how do you do that?
That's how we met. No, that's how we met. That's how we got involved.
People like Sully sponsor our $1 million challenge down the coast.
Regular folk like you are going to
Yes.
do the ride someday.
Yeah.
You go raise
Tommy's
some
done it 10 times. Come on now. But
I've retired.
Yeah.
But seriously, like, is it just calling people? Like, how do you do that?
We have Toyota as a global sponsor. We have Nike as a global sponsor. We have 100% Sunglasses as a global sponsor. Accenture, a lot of major support there. But we do a gala in New York City, which has raised over $24 million over time, and a gala in San Francisco, and then we do our.
And then there's events.
It all adds.
There's events. We did $1 million challenge. Is how I got involved, which was riding.
Right.
700 miles in 7 days, basically, and we all had to raise 100 some odd riders had to raise $12,500, and every year we tried to raise $1 million. We always raised $1.6 million or something like that.
I think the last time it was $3.7 million was 2 years ago when they did $1 million challenge. But now we send out grants in all 50 states, 73 countries, in 105 different sports. Our 105th sport, wheelchair pickleball. It's the 105th sport.
You make a great point, though, is that will it do the insurance change? Because don't let that pass over. If you lose a limb today, even in a motorcycle accident, okay, and let's say you're a teenage football player, like we've seen, right? Let's say you're a prospect. Your insurance is going to give you basically a flesh tone walking around leg. Not the blade, nothing that'll
Unless they meet Bob Babbitt.
Exactly.
Or they'll give you all the medication you want.
Right.
But they're not going to get you the equipment you need.
So our guest here today that I got the chance to talk to this week, close friend, I met on the $1 Million Challenge. And he was involved with CAF for a number of reasons. But you want to say a couple things about him, or you want to just invite him out and let him do it? What do you think?
Ladies and gentlemen.
Here we go.
He's an inspiration to millions of people. The Bionic Chef, Eduardo Garcia.
The best.
Wow, I got the first question. Because I've been reading your bio. Before we get to what happened, they say you started your cooking career when you were 15, and then you're all of a sudden a chef on a yacht. How did that happen?
You're either going to be a dishwasher, you're going to be a cook, or you're going to be a chef. I started in the bottom. I worked my way through high school. When I graduated high school, I knew that if I didn't do some type of post-high school education, I would disappear into fly fishing, rock climbing, nirvana. I grew up in Montana, and there was a yacht in Seattle while I was graduating cooking school, and they needed.
So the yacht wasn't in Montana?
No, man. No, man. I decided I have to keep this up. I have to keep cooking. And there was a yacht in town that needed a chef, and they say the rest is history, but I did that for about a decade.
Wow.
The interesting part is your cooking career, though, went on the elevators. I mean, you went and got very popular and very visible. Talk about that for a minute.
I feel like I realized with food right away at 15, you could put as many seasonings and spices and flavors and Yet the thing that I feel like just superseded all of it was this right here, was just sort of meeting someone at whatever level they were at and understanding that as long as you put some heart and soul into it, you would have a very perennial career ahead of you.
You had it, and the original cooking show that you had, what was the name of that?
So I left yachting after 10 years to pilot a show called Active Ingredient for
Where he went out,
network.
hunt it, kick it, cull it, clean it, serve it, eat it.
Yeah, I'm an outdoor guy from Montana, and my love is to be outdoors, to forage, to hunt, to fish. Food with a story, still my number 1 passion. And
But you're still a kid, right? You're still a young.
now, well, thank you.
Yes.
You know, at 43, I've made chefing my career since I was 15 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Eduardo Garcia, give me a hand. There is an insane story that goes along with it.
Craziest.
And I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make you sit there for a second. James, take him away here for a minute, because the story you're about to hear is gonna change your life, because it certainly changed your life.
Really?
And it's one of those stories that I'm surprised there isn't a movie about it.
There
It
is.
is.
I
All
watched it.
charged.
Oh, you think I
Charged.
just teed that one up?
Whoa! Thank you.
It's so good.
On the air, it's on the air. We'll see you in a minute.
Yeah.
All right. Bob Babbitt. Eduardo Garcia. On the air, it's on the air. Look at our live studio audience.
Yes.
Look at this. Nice job. I got a question. How do you become a live audience member? Mary Bird Godwin.
Email us at audience@loft100studios.com.
And we
That's where all
sometimes
these
we
fine
feed
folks
them.
did. Sometimes, and I think even today we might have
Yeah,
something.
we have a little
special.
snack today.
We have a little fun snack coming up later in the break.
We should,
later in the show.
Next time you're here, yeah.
Hey, wait, Eduardo. Bob Babbitt said there was a movie about you. Who played you in the movie?
There is. There's a documentary called Charge.
Got it.
I could say Brad Pitt. I actually have a twin.
I was gonna say.
I have a twin brother. I actually have a fraternal twin brother, Eugenio, and it's a non-scripted 86-minute full-length feature. It's available online in 20
It's
different
remarkable.
countries, 7 different languages.
Yeah.
But my twin brother cameos for just a short beginning part,
As you-
letting everyone in on the inside info here, is that in the very first 5 minutes of the film, there's a shot of a man, Eduardo, walking through the woods, and that's actually my brother. And the way I know is because he walks different than I do. I just can tell.
Well, listen, I want to talk about that because, first of all, and the name of the movie is Charged. I've seen it 10 times. It's phenomenal. Can you talk about this story for me, please? Because it is this audience needs to hear this story. This is insane.
Well, the beginning genesis of it all is that I had done a meal for my college roommate, and he was a Montana boy, and he wanted elk on the menu. And so classic.
For a wedding, for his wedding.
For his wedding, he's a Montana guy. He's like, could you do elk? I said, of course, no problem. It's easy to say that in May. The wedding's in September.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, we're 2 weeks out from his wedding, and I haven't
And you need elk.
successfully hunted an elk. So I started, and this.
You can't go to Costco?
And I can't make this up. No. This is pre-D'Artagnan foods, And so
Yeah.
I start calling friends, and I find an elk. And great, he gives me the entire harvest, and I turn it. If you've ever seen the film like Water for Chocolate,
Yeah, sure.
rose petal mole sauce.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is
It's a food
naturally.
group. It's a food group.
I'm gonna put some love into this meal. I'm gonna make elk with rose petal mole. I do the dish, I do the wedding, but now I come home and I have to pay back the elk. And so I'm out hunting, and I'm 30 days in, and on this particular day, I'm about 3 miles in the woods from my truck where I parked it that day, and I saw a metal can around yay big, 2 feet off the ground, and inside that metal can, there's a pile of black fur, some bones and some claws. And when you grow up in the Rocky Mountain West, you see a lot of old mining stuff, you see a lot of old sheep camps. It's actually not unnatural to see just some detritus in the woods. So I think, okay, this is some leftover mining stuff or who knows what. Well, that's interesting. It looks like the remains of a dead baby black bear. And I really need to frame this out for everybody because I'm certain this is not your everyday mention, just, oh, it's
No.
a dead baby black bear.
Yeah.
But if you've seen a bird feather on the sidewalk, right, a shell on the beach, we're on the coast here, that's how normal it is to see an antler, to see something in the woods like that. In the can, a little unique. To any event, I take a knife off my right hip, I put it in my left hand, and I'm gonna take a claw off as a memento. I'm a Boy Scout, something to show kids.
You're from
later.
Montana.
It's gonna live
You're
on my
clipping
shelf.
claws. Look at. Have you ever seen the river runs through it? Come on, you clipping claws?
I mean, maybe it's because I saw that film. I should write Redford, and he owes me.
Yeah.
I try to take the claw off. I get to within 18 inches from the base of the can, and if you hear a sound check go funky and there's like a little reverb happening, that happens at the same time as like a hairdryer is on the back of my neck. And that's what it sounds and feels like to have 2,400 volts go through your body.
So there was electric wire under there.
I got electrocuted.
Was the bear laying on electric? Is that how the bear died?
The bear was been dead for years. I'm talking dried up, mummified.
Oh,
Don't
no
know.
kidding.
And I've talked to so many people at the bar and in the local.
So have I. Oh, different story.
Yeah, different story. I've talked to them and asked, had you seen that can before? Had you been up that drainage? And some had, others hadn't. I had never seen that there before.
But what happened after that? So you
Well,
faint. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
I wake up.
You're blown back, or?
I wake up. If you've ever got the wind knocked out of you or been in a dream that you're desperately trying to get out of, kind of clawing through a bag that won't let you out, it's a bit like that. And then I see clouds, I see blue sky. I realize I'm lying on my back. It's as pure and simple as, why am I laying down?
Yeah. Right.
I don't really remember anything else, just why am I laying down? And I remember getting to my feet. Also, if you've ever tried to get out of those dreams, you have to repeat to yourself, wake up, wake up, wake up, something like that, like a mantra of type. And I say, get to my feet, get to your feet. I do. And then I don't remember leaving that spot. My next memory is the sound of gravel under my shoes, walking on a dirt road. I see the river valley below me. I see the Yellowstone River, the town I went to elementary school, the western meadowlark.
And you're still not all there.
No, I'm in a dream state, legitimately.
It was your instincts to get there.
Humans, we have, no matter how far AI and the internet wants to take anybody here today, the inside part of your being knows exactly who, where, and what you are, every time, all the time. And that is what my first memory was, oh, you're walking, that's Gardner, that's the Yellowstone River, that was a bird flying. What are you doing walking? And then it's coming like this. And as I start then looking, I notice that my left hand is gripped in a very grotesque way like this. It's black, I can see bone. And I have bear spray in my right hand, which is very interesting. I mean, this is grizzly bear country. And so I left my backpack, I left my cell phone, I left my keys. I took my bear spray to walk out of the woods. Don't remember that port. And realized, wow, I'm walking, holy smokes, that noise, that heat, that bear in the can, I think I got electrocuted.
Wow.
And ended up walking to a cabin down on the river. Someone was working on the outside. They called 911, and I got airlifted to the University of Utah.
What was the bear? Was it electric wire? What did it turn out to be?
It's a very simple answer, and it's classic. When you put power to a backcountry cabin, and they usually buried it in the road going to the cabin, going up a hill, you're gonna make the switchbacks long. And there was a section where they just went straight up from one part of the road to the next, and they put a junction box. So the end of the wire was there, they put a new end of wire and they spliced it, and they did not bury it, they put a can with locks on it. But at some point in
And
time,
that was the can.
that can fell off a maintenance chart. The lid and locks had compromised and fallen off.
Because of the weather.
Life,
whatever,
years, and so I found it in 2011. I think the last recorded maintenance was in the late 80s. And so like I said, some folks knew it was there and knew what it was. I had no idea. All I knew is there was a claw. I'm gonna take that claw and keep going.
You wake up, so you airlifted, you wake up in the hospital? At that point, were you?
I remember going through my hometown. I live in a very small town. I remember seeing, the flashing yellow light on the highway through the back of the ambulance. I remember pit stopping in my hometown's hospital, and the fire chief, who I went to high school with, came in and said, hey, Eddie, you're in rough shape, hang in there. I remember seeing him and saying, hey, Seth. And yeah, then spent 52 days in the University of Utah, 21 surgeries.
How did you guys connect?
We connected. Actually, it's funny because I had actually seen the Citizen Pictures promo for your show when you had both arms.
And now just gonna jump in because what Bob's referencing is the day I got electrocuted, October 9th, 2011. I was 4 days away from flying to New York for a meeting to sell my first cooking show to the Food Network.
Yep.
That's right.
And so that's what you're referencing.
Yep. And I think we met at the first time because this was right after the bombings at the Boston Marathon, and Eduardo was with us at our gala in New York.
Bob was talking about fundraising earlier and how this organization has changed so many lives, including my own. And a friend, I was a yacht chef for 10 years prior to this incident, and Martin Franklin and the Franklin family, big supporters of the Challenge Athletes Foundation. And when they knew this happened, one of them, I think it was Mikey Franklin, their son, said, we have got to get Eduardo to the Challenge Athletes Foundation. And I remember being in my home in Montana and getting a call from your past executive director, Virginia Tinley.
Yep.
And I remember her inviting me, per referral from the Franklins, to go to this fancy gala in New York. We really think that you would benefit by it. And I remember saying to her, I'm not an athlete. I'm an outdoor guy, I'm a chef.
Yeah, but look who you represent in terms of fundraising.
1,000, what you don't know, you don't know. What you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
But I remember being in that room, and where it changed me was I hadn't even ran yet.
Yeah.
And I remember going to
Was there ever a moment when you said, I'm not doing anything. I don't want to do anything. Like were you always an inspiration?
I was 7 weeks premature. And so there's just a theme in my life where it's without purpose. That preemptive, compulsive nature got me in a lot of trouble as a kid. But with purpose attached to it, there's almost nothing that I can't put my mind to. And I think many of us can attest to somehow having that coin in our life. You know, and so being with Bob, Central Park, Rudy, a lot of these athletes, bagels getting passed around, and I had not really moved my body. I was like, I got electrocuted in October, the gala sometime in the winter. It was like maybe in the spring, like February, March, like that, and I had not moved yet, right, in that way. And I remember thinking, I'm missing 3 ribs on my left torso still, and I remember thinking, how will I locomote? How is this gonna happen? And Rudy Garcia Tolson, one of the Challenge athletes,
Double above knee.
Paralympian, remember he came up and he just made me feel so at home. He shook my hand and he said, well, welcome, man, this is gonna be great. You ready to run? And I was like, I think so. I'm wearing skate shoes, okay. You know, and he said, you're gonna be great. And you know, before you know it, then you're moving and then you're running and
then you're cooking.
And then you get back into your life, you know, and that's what this organization does. By exposing everything underneath the bandage, everything you don't want to show the world, by exposing it, we're taken back to to your real metal.
And fast forward, just because I want people to know, you created Montana Mex, which was a I call it a hot sauce company. It was much more than that, but it was but
Organics Food Company.
Organics Food Company.
Yep.
And you created a very successful keynote speaking business.
Thank you.
We're talking. And then, of course, you've got your sustainable sort of goal in life to create a farm and to create a Disneyland for people who want to grow and eat and cook.
I'm a farm kid. Through and through, I'm a farm kid. More recently, 2 seasons with Magnolia Network, multi-Emmy nominated show, Big Sky Kitchen. And so after 14 years, did finally get my TV show out and worked on it. Very grateful to Chip and Joanna Gaines for that opportunity. And so to this day, I still feel that food with story connected to it offers context that product and service can't touch.
Do you think getting you moving in New York got you back in the kitchen? Or do you think you were heading there anyway? Or was that a tipping point for you?
Without question. I was headed naturally back that way, and yet you can sleepwalk your way back to how you've been. Easy. Yet to truly feel confident about the journey, so that you're not only an aspiration to yourself, but you can inspire those around you and give back. That's what Challenge Athletes Foundation does.
And also you're providing those role models. Willie Stewart, one-arm guy doing swimming.
You mean one-arm Willie?
One-arm Willie.
That's what happens in CAF.
Best story ever, Eduardo Garcia.
more to come, don't we?
Yeah.
So coming up, we have the fastest man on earth, who happens to support Challenge Athletes Foundation. I know Mary's got a couple questions. Wow, what a story! Eduardo Garcia, Bob Babbitt, I'm Sully, that's Tommy, that's Mary, that's the only Babbitt. Look at this live audience, Tommy.
Yeah.
Great to have you on today. So, Mary, you had a question I thought was.
I did. Well, I watched Charged, which I highly recommend everybody watching. And I remember hearing something in it, something about when you first got maybe a prosthetic hand and you were trying to cook and it wasn't quite working for you. And so you decided on this hook. So tell me, lefty you call it.
This is lefty. It's actually fitting you asked me that question here today because if you Google Eduardo Garcia, Good Morning America, and you look really closely to the end of my segment, you'll notice that the bionic hand that I'm using, it's an ergonomic looking hand, 5 fingers.
I remember that hand.
And I could move it around a whole bunch, and yet the night before, I couldn't get the battery to charge. Don't know why.
By the way, that thing was cool looking. Do you remember that at the last night at Dana Point when we presented you with a bicycle and you were passing that hand around? It was like a paperweight.
Bionic.
It's cool until it freezes on live TV and like this kind of emotion, and you're supposed to be making French toast.
Yeah.
And your middle finger
What
was
happened? What did you do?
I 86'd it. I said never again. I said I'm gonna go back to a 4-wheel drive type of deal. I'm a truck driving guy.
Analog versus digital.
I put a metal plate, so I have a hammer on this thing.
Yeah.
I can fix it with just a wish and a prayer.
And you can hold the meat down while you cook it.
9,000%. So this is
Yeah,
lefty.
it's the perfect. Yeah, I love it.
So you're basically saving money as a cook.
That's our job.
One way to look at it, right? For you next steps for cooking. What's your next goal?
Educating the youth. I got kicked out of 9 schools as a kid. It took me a minute to learn that I love to learn, and yet I really needed a different type of school. And so right now I think food educates us here first before our brain even gets connected to learning. We learn through the gut. And so working on my old home farm in southwest Montana, right on the border of Yellowstone, and working with the youth and working with the elderly is my focus.
Why'd you get kicked out? Just give me one reason.
Yeah, you couldn't make it to 10 schools?
That's 9
Winner.
reasons.
You're
just a kid.
No, truly, this is why I'm such an advocate for learning in all varieties of ways. I really channeled rebellion as an outlet because it was easier than trying to understand why after the 3rd time I asked a question, basically saying I'm not learning the way we're being taught today. I was just being disruptive.
So you were a stoner?
No, before that. No, that was the last school I got kicked out of. Prior to that, it was just, you get down a funky road.
Yeah. Let's get to another famous
let's bring him out.
AF guy.
That's legal today, by the way.
Yes, it is.
That's right.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the United States of America, legendary Olympic cyclist, John Howard.
Hi, John.
I remember taking back in the day when you were teaching me how to ride a bike, a bike handling class for me on the road.
Yeah.
And realized that you were the fastest man to ever travel on a bicycle.
Oldest and fastest.
Well, now.
But wait a minute. Olympic, 68 Mexico, 72 Munich, 76 Montreal.
Yep.
Yeah, and I would have done Moscow, but they canceled that one for the U.S. team. Yeah.
And you're an Ironman winner.
Ironman, yes.
Winner, #1.
And
Yeah.
how fast
When
did you
dinosaurs still
go?
walked
Nuts.
the planet.
Well, Bob was there.
No, I was still there. Bob was there.
Yeah.
How fast did you go on a bicycle on the salt flats?
152.2 miles per hour.
What?
Really?
Did you say that again?
152 miles.
152 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Can we just please? Come on. Are you serious?
That's insane.
Have you been in a car?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And
A race car.
you did that behind, and then you helped Denise Mueller
Yeah, I coached Denise. I worked with her since she was 14 years old.
And how fast did she go?
She went 183 miles an hour.
Good student.
And
And this is downhill.
No.
it's done with a race car. In this case, a rail dragster that we modified. And there's a large fairing behind the car. And your job is to stay as close to that fairing as possible.
It's a hood, basically. So for everybody else, you're basically you're blocking the wind, and
Exactly.
when you have no.
If you can eliminate wind, you can go as fast as the car, at least in theory.
Yeah.
So you were using your own legs,
Yes.
and to keep up with the car, and the car's inching up faster and faster. The next thing you know, you're 152, and Denise Mueller goes 183.
83, 183, yeah.
These aren't off the
Can-
shelf gears, right? Like,
It's a different.
the bike.
John, how did you get involved with CAF?
Bill Walton brought me into the CAF program.
The late Bill Walton.
We miss him.
The late Bill Walton.
And you have been. I mean, every time I've ridden and I've been involved with for 14 years and ridden with you thousands and thousands of miles. And you're one of those guys that can probably attest to the fact that if you've never ridden a bicycle, or you've never been to an athletic event, and you get involved with a CF event to help raise money, there's people like you who can walk people through it. It's accessible to everyone.
It is. I've done 9 MDCs when
That's $1 million challenge for the.
$1 million challenge. We raised money, almost $2 million in each one of those, and I've done 9 of them. So it was a pile of money, and it certainly. I think as I look back at it, I think CAF has put more disabled athletes on the Paralympic team than any other organization. Isn't that true, Bob?
This year, there was 225 members of Team USA, and 127 of those were CAF grantees.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's remarkable.
The 800-pound girl in the room is how to get involved. Challengedathletes.org. Challengedathletes.org. Donate. Send this show an email. And go out on a weekend ride. We've got a club ride that comes out every Saturday. John's at that. Bob's at that. I'm gonna get. You're gonna be cooking with me for that.
Let's go.
I'm not gonna ride again.
Yeah.
So
Well, you know, speaking of Bill Walton and John, when Challenge Athletes Foundation, through the organization, I received a bike. And I remember finishing the last day of the ride from Laguna-ish, Dana Point, down to La Jolla Cove.
on that Army Green Colnago.
That's right.
That was Dwayne Roth's.
That was
bike.
Dwayne Roth's bike.
Dwayne Roth here in San Diego, folks, was one of the people that started the biotech industry in San Diego. And we were on a training ride, and Dwayne tragically lost his life. But long story short, is you ended up with a cool. And I remember you didn't train. I talked to you that night. You jumped in that thing and you rode 50 miles the next day.
I hike, but I don't bike. I didn't then. And you knew it because I showed up in non-bike. I was the only one non-spandex.
Once again, skate shoes.
I was the only one in skate shoes. And I remember John said, when you wrap this whole triathlon thing up on Sunday, come over to my house and I'll fit you to this bike. And so I also have, you know.
John, do you still do bike fittings?
I do, yes.
So if you are a cyclist, contact the program and we'll put you in touch because, in fact, you know, you should probably bring it over to your house to fit your Peloton because you're going to start riding.
It has my cleaners on. But I do have a question for John after the break.
More On the Air is on the air for the Challenge Athletes Foundation. John Howard, Eduardo Garcia, Bob Babbitt. See you in a minute. There we go.
Hey, before we bring out our next guest, I have a question for Mr. Howard. I was a kid in the early 70s, you know, riding my bike, you know, the banana seat and all that stuff. And we weren't thinking of helmets. And we would be going downhill, you know, without any helmets, and nobody said anything. You were a cyclist in the Olympics in 68 and 72 and 76. Were you guys thinking of helmets?
No, not really. Cycling was a dangerous sport.
Yeah.
It always will be. But the helmet technology has improved a lot. Yeah, we used hairnets at the time.
Well, I mean, going back to the Tour de France, you guys used to smoke cigarettes and drink red wine, thinking it was going to improve your performance. So, which I still think red wine improves your performance. I've had 3 bottles before we came here today. Let's get on to our next guest.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the Challenge Athletes Foundation, Christy Fritts.
Good to see you. I've seen you at CAF as long as I've been at CAF, I think. How long have you been involved in?
6 years.
Well, then maybe a little bit longer.
There about 6 years.
And you do what there?
Everything.
Public relations, marketing, special campaigns.
Yes,
work
we're working on our
alongside
Super
It's
Bob.
Bowl
like being
commercial right
a
now.
San Diego weatherman, your job, right? It's got to be an easy.
love my
I know you work very hard, but this is a good message to get out, right?
It is.
This is the message that people are willing to listen to, isn't it?
Definitely.
I-
Yeah. Telling the stories of the amazing athletes is kind of easy because listen to Eduardo. It's amazing.
To Tommy's point about raising money. I mean, let's face it. You have a mission here, and the mission here is to raise money. I mean, you've got a culture here that you want to support, but there's also the mission's raising money.
Yeah.
Challenge athletes that are. Talk about that for a little bit and how you get that message out, because one of your jobs is to get those. You know, you're the hub of the wheel. You need more spokes and more funnels coming in for
a lot more
money, right?
spokes. Yeah. Well, there's so many opportunities throughout the year to raise money and showcase our athletes to do that. So whether it's through clinics that we put on all across the U.S., the galas that we do, the $1 Million Challenge Ride, which I know we're talking about today, and what else?
Oh, we are. Well,
Well, maybe we already talked about it.
No, but the other thing that Christy does so well is when we get a story that, you know, a lot of times doing regional things with KUSI, with some of our athletes, but then sometimes we'll get a amazing national story.
Well, that's so
It'll reach
important,
out
too.
to World News Tonight. Next thing you know, our athletes on World News Tonight.
and it really is about recall and recognition when people think about CAF and about raising that money. I mean, because you look, isn't that a great thing they're doing? But to get to that last inch solution to writing the check is part of really what it's all about. Does that change your life? Does that change your messaging, and or is it just a matter of getting the word out there?
I love getting the word out there. I mean, I'm passionate about the mission, just like everybody else that works there. And
You have the heart for it.
I have the heart for it.
You do.
I do. Yes, I love our athletes. I love their stories.
Christy, are you the liaison also between you see an athlete or you see a representative of CF and the message going into, let's say, a Fox 5 or a KUSI and so on and so forth?
Yeah, we do.
Yes, she is.
Yeah. Christy will see a story with one of our athletes and say, oh, this media outlet would be perfect for that. They're from Joplin, Missouri. I know somebody there. Let's get this story out.
Well, there's only one media outlet.
There's Fox and KUSI, right? You got two now. There used to
But
be one.
you're so good when I book Bob, I'll book Bob, I'll text him, hey, can you do tomorrow? He'll say yes, and then in 90 seconds, you'll text me, hey, I hear you have Bob tomorrow.
What do you need? What can I get you? Here,
What photos do you need? What
information.
what assets?
Let me tell you the story of the athlete, what
Yes.
they're doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you talk about the arc of the story for CAF,
Yes.
one of your biggest fundraisers has been $1 Million Challenge. We're taking a break from that for a couple of years. And I know there's talk about potential. But what are we looking forward to for this year, 100% for 2025 for you?
Well, for sure, we got our San Diego Triathlon Challenge weekend coming up October 24th, 25th, 26th. We have
Man, I
our.
got a root canal.
Oh, what a surprise.
Can't participate.
What a surprise.
Can't do it.
Yeah. We've got
Cool.
our Celebration of Heart Gala in San Francisco that's coming up in late April, I think. Then our Heroes Heart and Hope Gala is November. I'm sorry. It's November in New York, and that one has raised over $24 million or so for us. So, you know, it's a plus. There's clinics going on all the time. We got with our partner Oster, we do amputee running clinics around the country. It's what's happened a lot is we'll go and do an amputee running clinic, which is wonderful. And then we in the past we didn't really have that connection with the local adaptive community. Well, now we have that. So because you can't just do a clinic and say, okay, you've learned how to run today. You need to have them connected to local groups so that they can continue to get better.
One last question before we go to break. How do people get challengeathletes.org? Is that the best way to donate?
Challengeathletes.org.
Challengedathletes.org. You see the website right below my face here or below Christy's face here. And I want you to, and look, I want to challenge people, you know, at just a couple of bucks a day, commit to it and get yourself on a donation link. I'll tell you what, it's going to change people's lives. We're not done yet because there is a food connection here.
What?
Yes.
We got food and a local business. Yeah. Hey. I like that.
I like that.
On the air, it's on the air. On the air, it's on the air. Great to have you along today. I may or may not have been eating on the break because of our next guest.
Well, you're going to be eating in a few minutes.
Yeah. First of all, thank you guys for coming. And once
You're
again,
welcome.
You're welcome.
Hold on, no, hey, no, just
What's this?
right off Flame.
God, Sully, I didn't know you were in Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I wasn't. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Bob. One more day, we've been over it. Just that close to getting over that. ChallengeAthletes.org.
Yes.
I want to be able to say at the end of the year, because the end of last year we were able to raise money just through this television program. This is one of many that we'll do this year. But I want you guys to go to the website challengeathletes.org, and if I have my way, we're going to do $1 million challenge again. You have a title sponsor, you have a production company, you have a band. We just need 100 writers, and me and Eduardo will do the cooking.
It's so cool to have the band.
And by me and Eduardo, I mean Eduardo.
So the band will be in a flat drip bag truck and
The whole time.
Right, the whole time.
The whole time.
I love that.
Guys in?
Never again.
They're like, wait, we did that before. Our next guest, in my other life, in the investment banking, I met this next guest. One day he shows up with some food.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Jules Abraham.
What's that in your hand? First of all, we love promoting small business here in San Diego. And Jules and I met in our other life, which is investment banking and in business. Jules and I are
old friends.
Old friends. So Jules shows up about 3 years ago with, and he's always got aluminum foil in his hand. So he's either selling hashish or he's got an old sandwich or something.
What's in the bag? Oh.
I'll show you.
And it's always showing up with pastrami, right? And at some point I said, you need to go into business. And lo and behold.
He's been trying to get me to open a deli for 5 years.
And here comes
There it is.
Pastrami Q, which is a lifelong young Jewish boy out of New York trying to figure out.
Out of Virginia via New York.
No, whatever. And so you have created in San Diego Pastrami Q.
I have created Pastrami Q, made with love.
Is this a hard thing to do? Look at it.
You know,
I mean, as a chef, I just gotta be like,
so
you gotta try this.
I think it's more involved than it is hard.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a little time. You know, to cure the meat. You know, you want to cure the meat for about a week and a half.
How do you go from being an investment banking analyst, investor relations guy into I think I'm going to cook meat and cure it?
Oh,
I want the answer to this, but I could do the flip side now. I could learn something.
the answer is I'm a glutton who misses his old environment. Is
Yeah,
really what it comes
right.
down to.
Where are you from?
So I'm originally from Virginia Beach, Virginia, but
Like I said, New York City.
But I spent 20 years in New York, you know, right after college and and so I went there for grad school and kind of got a Katz's Deli habit that, you know, wouldn't go away. Moved here about 10 years ago and just kind of missed the New York style pastrami.
I just realized I have a deli habit. I've never heard of it.
Isn't that a great?
It's a habit.
It's a habit.
It is.
It's a habit, and I'm kind of your, you know.
Eduardo, are you intrigued?
Listen, you can have certain kinds of dealers. It comes in a little packet. This is the right kind of dealer. No judgment.
This crowd can have all they want. They're athletes. They're.
So are you sticks and bricks? Are you mail order now?
Right now I'm completely virtual. We are starting slow. I mean, you know, the business opened officially about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But you got packaging and you've got.
Oh, yeah.
And by the
I've
way,
been working
audience,
on this
you have
for like
sliders for the audience after
I
the show.
do.
For Eduardo.
Okay, we gotta try it.
All right, where's Matt? Matt, can we get some walk-on music for the pastrami? Because here comes Matt with the pastrami.
So this is not how I would normally serve it. Normally you want it with rye bread and mustard. Here you got you know, slider rolls and mustard. And this is special because this is
Thank you, buddy.
California tri-tip pastrami, which is what
Everybody's looking at Eduardo. Everyone's looking at Eduardo.
Well, Eduardo and I had a little conversation at the beginning.
Go for it.
Yes, dude.
So Eduardo knows what he was about to take.
That's this one.
So yeah, so what I do is I do tri-tip and brisket on the red meat side.
Yep.
But I also do turkey.
Really?
Yeah. So the lighter package there is turkey pastrami. And if you look at the carts, those are actually my pastrami.
Really? This is your stuff?
That's my stuff. Those are my photos.
If we hired you for a future show, would you pastrami everybody out for lunch afterwards? Would that be possible?
Yeah.
How do people get to your stuff right now?
So right now, the best way to do it is my email, which I love my email.
We'll put it up on the email. What is it?
Get it at pastramiq.com.
Get it at pastramiq.com.
How do you spell Q?
Instagram, pastramiqsd.
All right.
Nice.
How, guys? Yeah?
Delicious.
You can't even talk.
No.
Are you?
Mr. Babbitt? Mr. Babbitt, can you hand me one?
Oh, yeah, you got to give one to Tommy.
Yes.
I had 3 on the break. I'm going to have 3 more afterwards.
You hear
Guys, thanks for coming on the air. It's on the air. Eduardo Garcia, John Howard, Bob Babbitt, Christy Fritts, Jules. Thank you guys for coming. We'll see you next week.